Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Kryptonite Show. Hope you guys are having a blast out there. Well, we've got a great topic at the moment because this is really impressive stuff here coming from President Trump. He's paused military aid to the Ukraine, of course, and that is in order to pressure President Zelenskyy there towards peace, because some of Zelensky's comments have been like he wants a forever war, billions of dollars flooding in. And where's it going? All right, we already know there's billions missing already. That's been acknowledged by Zelenskyy himself. So there's some real big issues going over there, and of course the bloodshed is horrific. About 3,000 a week, which is like the total amount of American troops lost in Afghanistan for over 20 years. So it's a pretty horrific war there, and it's unwinnable, right? It's unwinnable. So it is something that needs to be ended, and Trump is pushing for peace. The Europeans and Zelenskyy there off making their own deal, and it's pretty crazy. I know that the Prime Minister of Ukraine, of UK, Starmer there said that he had talked to Trump about it, but I think Trump really wants them to go towards peace and is only really supportive in that case. So pretty crazy stuff. We're going to get into all the details. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, hit the bell. We are streaming to 3 channels, so big shout out there to all the supporters. If you want to get into our Discord, it's pretty amazing in there, really. A lot of great people. Then get into the Kryptonite Show Discord. The links are in the video description for that. Only $5 a month, which is great value and a great community in there. We also got a Crypto Strategy Club that's $35 a month. Get into that if you really want to get some great intel as well. Got a big update coming today. And of course, don't forget, if you want a one-on-one with me to talk about crypto and personal finance and things like that, then we've got a new product offering there as well. That is $99 a month for 45-minute session. So check that out. And I got a special new offering coming up very soon, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to enjoy. So get onto that. Without further ado, though, let's get into the topic. President Trump pauses military aid to the Ukraine to pressure for peace there. So let's get into it. So we had this comment here from Zelenskyy from World News. Ukraine, Zelenskyy says end of war with Russia is very, very far away. What? What is this guy talking about? What is this guy talking about? And we need peace. It's been 3 years already, for goodness sake. We need peace. This has been going on since February 2022, and it's just horrific. They estimate maybe somewhere like 700,000 Ukrainian troops are dead. Maybe 900,000 Russian troops. I mean, this war is getting out of hand. And for every soldier that gets killed, there's normally about 2 injured, right? So there's a lot of cripples running around there, unfortunately, and it's really horrific. So we need this to finish. And if you've ever seen any of the footage, it's horrific stuff that's going on over there. And of course, drone wars, lots of other things in there as well. Apparently, Russia just recently put out about 230 drones over the battlefield, killing people off. So it really is brutal there. So the war does need to end. Trump is on the right direction here. He's not a president that's trying to continue to push NATO over to Russia. He really wants to get world peace and to reorganize the world. So I think it's in the right direction for sure. So Donald Trump says this is the worst statement, that referring to Zelenskyy there, that could have ever been made by Zelenskyy, and America will not put up with it for much longer. It is what I was saying. This guy doesn't want there to be peace as long as he has America's backing. Well, obviously, America has pulled back some of that backing today with this aid package cut, military aid package cut there. And Europe, in a meeting they had with Zelenskyy, stated flatly that they cannot do the job without the US. So even Europe, with their so-called coalition of the willing, they can't do it without America's backing. You're not just talking about the money; you're talking about the military, you're talking about logistics, intelligence, etc., things like that. Stated flatly that they cannot do the job without the US. And of course, President Trump, he wants peace. Now you got to remember, President Trump isn't like these previous presidents where they're part of this political machine. President Trump is independent. He wants to get back to the Constitution. He wants peace, wants prosperity, and he wants American greatness, right? The American dream. And he's trying to reinstate all that, up with great resistance from the Democrats and people like that, right, who are pushing some terrible ideologies and policies. So probably not a great statement to have made in terms of showing a strength against Russia either. What are they thinking? A forever war? Obviously, Russia has indicated to Trump that he wants to end the war, and there are good reasons for that I've laid out before. So that is kind of where we are with that statement. So that they're spurred on. Once Zelenskyy said the end of war with Russia is very, very far away, Trump was like, no, 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 no. And then, of course, in response to this, Zelenskyy has put another post in saying, we'll get there. We'll get towards the end of the. We'll make some progress towards peace. So Zelenskyy definitely came back on that, but that's pretty outstanding. Now we've got some little videos here to watch from the Vance. So JD Vance just done an interview on Fox, so we're going to listen to him, and this just reaffirms this angst that the Trump administration has with Zelenskyy. Trump wants peace. Zelenskyy, the forever war. So let's see where we head here.
And here's the thing, when you would talk to the Biden administration officials in private, it's another example of a terrible situation the Biden admin left the Trump administration. When you ask them what's the plan, okay, we're going to spend tens of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars in Ukraine. What is your plan? And they would honestly tell you, well, we're just going to send them weapons for as long as we can and hope eventually they can turn the tide. Hope is not a strategy. Throwing money and ammunition at a terrible conflict, that is not a strategy. The only guy in town with a strategy is the President of the United States, and everybody needs to follow his lead.
What scares me is Zelenskyy, when he says it's going to go on for years, how many more lives are going to be lost? He's not going to have a country to save at the end of that. The minerals deal would have provided the monies to rebuild their country and a strong U.S. presence and maybe European troops as well.
So just on that moment about the minerals, now obviously they haven't discovered a lot of rare earths in Ukraine. They've got some proven they got some proven. I've just forgotten the word now. Lithium deposits. That's what I was trying to. I was coming up with a mixture of words there. They got proven lithium deposits, but not rare earths, and rare earths are dominated by China. So it's less the fact that there are actually rare earths there. They still have to prove that up, but it's actually the fact that they have the United States would have an economic stakeholder there, and therefore have a reason to defend Ukraine as a security guarantee. So that was the idea there, and it was a brilliant play by Trump. Meanwhile, Zelenskyy there's off with his own agendas and just missing the whole point of the diplomacy, because really there's a lot of other things going on and not really good. So this is what Trump's trying to expose that in the Oval Office the other day, showing that actually Zelensky's got some alternative motives here, and things aren't quite right. They don't match up, and he's very vindictive and a lot of other things there. So let's listen on to the Vice President here.
Important part of it, the president knows that, look, if you want real security guarantees, if you want to actually ensure that Vladimir Putin does not invade Ukraine again, the very best security guarantee is to give Americans economic upside in the future of Ukraine. That is a way better security guarantee than 20,000 troops from some random country that hasn't fought a war in 30 or 40 years. The security guarantee and also the economic guarantee for Ukraine is to rebuild the country and ensure that America has a long-term interest. You're not going to do that if you come to the Oval Office, insult the president, and refuse to follow his plan for peace.
All right, so you heard it there from JD Vance there, that there's no forever war. There's no continual funding. The Americans are not going to be doing that, and you need to come towards peace. Enough is enough, and this is really, really bad. Now, obviously, Zelensky's been over in Europe with all the European leaders. They're all bloodthirsty warmongers. They talk about peace, but it's a very shallow form, and it's really just PC talk, because they had 3 years to do peace and they never did anything. That's funded the war, and of course, Putin is the bogeyman, right? The bogeyman. The other thing, of course, since 1992, after the Germany fell and all the rest of it, they ended up, everything else in the USSR, they ended up moving north to, east towards Russian border, right? And so that's been a real issue. And in 2014, before they invaded, of course, the Crimea, the Russians invaded Crimea, Ukraine was pushing, the CIA did a coup there and got rid of the neutral president. And of course, they moved towards a biased one towards NATO. So, there's a lot of guilt there from previous administrations. And of course, Trump's like, I'm not part of this whole scheme. I just want peace, and we're going to fix it up with Putin. And Putin wants to get back in the international community. The economy is definitely starting to struggle now after 3 years of war. And so it's time to make peace. So there's a lot of that stuff going on there as well.
President Trump has said clearly and consistently is, of course, the door is open so long as Zelenskyy is willing to seriously talk peace. You can't come into the Oval Office or anywhere else and refuse to even discuss the details of a peace deal. Look, this is not going to make anybody happy. The Russians are going to have to give up stuff. The Ukrainians are going to have to give up stuff. You can't come to the Oval Office and say, give us security guarantees. We won't even engage with you about what we're willing to give up. That's been the Ukrainian posture. When that posture changes, as President Trump said, when they're willing to talk peace, I think President Trump will be the first person to.
So there we are. It just shows you a very clear view of where the administration is and where Zelenskyy is. And, Zelenskyy tried to use the Oval Office as a way of talking to the American people to try and manipulate them. Saying, the influence of this is all going to come over to you in America. And of course, Americans hate that sort of nonsense. And of course, and it's not true either. I mean, this is the United States we're talking about. And secondly, the fact that forever money is going into the Ukraine. Where's it all going? Because there's a lot missing. And of course, there's Ukraine before the war was accused by mainstream media, which is the stuff that's actually supporting them now, of corruption and many other things. So, you got biolabs and Nazis and all sorts of stuff going on there. And we see that today, right, under the Ukrainian regime. We see the fact that when he became the leader, he ended up purging all of the other parties and putting people in prison and things like that, compared to Winston Churchill during World War II, when he had no elections, he actually united all the parties. So it's a very different circumstance there. And we've got money issues, we've got dictatorial type of behavior, we've got certainly narcissistic behavior, and now we've also got people being thrown into vans and put into the front line in Ukraine. So there's a lot of bad things happening. And now the average age of a soldier in the Ukraine is like 43. I mean, they're really running through the population, and it's quite horrific there. And how do we know he speaks for the people of Ukraine when there's no elections? So, he's boldly going around saying that. So some very big questions to be had over the head of him. And of course, when you say that, when he's saying, there's not going to be an end to the war for a long time, is that just a gravy train? Well, he sends his people to the meat grinder. I mean, it really is some big questions to be asked there. And of course, I think he has to turn around and start humbling himself and moving towards peace, because otherwise there's no other alternative. It's a binary decision. You got 2,000 or 3,000 people dying every week on the front line. It's just terrific. So hopefully that will end up moving forward, and he will come back to the White House with true, genuine intention for peace. And follow the process. The process has to be set up first, diplomatic process, and then the negotiations, and they can do the bargaining in behind the scenes there. So that is, otherwise at the moment, he's just playing into Putin's hands, and everyone wants to get peace there. So let's have a little third clip that we've got. Before we do that, though, let's got a few more comments in the chat there. So let's say hello, everybody. Hey, Francia, I hope you're doing well out there. Big shout out to you. Hello, Superman and everybody. We got Wookie in the house there. Let's be gone, Trump man. I'm not sure what that means, but game over, he says. Game over. We got Steak Hex as well. We got, I'm not sure we should cut a deal with Zelenskyy. We have to remember the scoundrel runs most corrupt government in the world, kills his own people, jails political adversaries. Yeah, that's a huge point. And, you can all be against the immoral decision of Putin to go in and murder a lot of people, but you got terrible behavior before the war even started in Ukraine and during the war with Zelenskyy. And it's easy for you to, people to sit on a seat. But if you're one of those people getting thrown into a van or something, it's not that fun. And then next minute you find yourself being tortured and then put on the front line. So it's not very much fun there at all. So I agree with that. That's a good comment. Wookie says, join the Strategy Club today. Yeah, definitely join up with that link. If you haven't joined up, $35 a month. Great value there. Big shout out there, Wookie. Brennan says, howdy, folks. Latest rumor on the block. Eric Trump has said in a Discord chat and hinted that no tax on crypto announcement this Friday. Wow, that would be huge. Well, that's just what we need too for the mid-March rally there. Nice little intel there from Brennan. We've got Hexamigo in the house there. Hi all, good to see Hexamigo. Fantastic. Good to see you in the house there. Love that little emoji profile as well. All right, so let's get on to some of the other news items here. We've got one little clip left of J.D. Vance. This is hot off the press, by the way, just come out. So let's look at this one too.
Sean, I think our European friends, frankly, are being really, really they're doing a disservice to the Ukrainians because their own populations are saying, we're not going to fund this war indefinitely. The American people are saying, we don't want to fund the war indefinitely. So the only thing that is in the best interest of America, of Russia, of Ukraine, and of Europe is to bring this thing to a close. What happened, Sean, is you have Zelenskyy. He goes to Europe, and a lot of our European friends puff him up. They say, you're a freedom fighter. You need to keep fighting forever. Well, fighting forever with what? With whose money, with whose ammunition, and with whose lives? The president is actually taking a much more realistic perspective and saying this can't go on forever. We can't fund this thing forever. The Ukrainians can't fight forever. So let's bring this thing to a peaceful
Absolutely
settlement.
agree with that. I mean, it's been 3 years. Thousands of men dying every day, every week, and it's got to end. And of course, terrible behavior is going on in Ukraine. It needs to be returned back to a democratic vote, and they need to put, gut out all the corruption that's there. So there's a lot of work there. Why give all these billions to corruption? And the other point I made the other day was that Ukraine can't go into NATO, and it needs to stay out of NATO. It also needs to not go into the European Union for its own good, because if they do get into the European Union, they're in a pre-entry phase at the moment. If they do get in, they're going to have to be required to take the normal immigration that all other countries do, and so they're going to be overrun with Middle Eastern and people from Africa who are all war-age males. They're not actual real refugees, and of course we know what they've done in the rest of Europe. Rape and pillage and all the other immoral acts they're doing. So jihadi acts. I mean, we just saw another one in Germany today. I mean, they just go on and on and on because that's what they do. So you get taken. So you fight the war in Ukraine, and then you go back home, and basically back to the big cities, and then you get taken over without a shot fired. So there's some real issues there, and of course we're facing it in our countries here. I mean, we're got existential threat going on at the moment in good old New Zealand. So facing a number of issues here. I mean, it's just crazy, the stuff. All right, so that is from JD Vance there as well. Let me know your comments in the chat there. Now, if you disagree, put your comments in chat. Always just be respectful. We can agree to disagree and all that sort of stuff. But that's where we are at the moment. Now, we're going to look at some more analysis on this. How much money is stuff? So billions of dollars, right? So the US has provided approximately $66 billion so far in military aid. I think the total amounts potentially up to $350 billion over the period of time. And of course, at the moment, the Oval Office there from the White House has basically said, "No, we're halting delivery of billions of dollars of weapons, ammunition, and equipment, including items already in transit." Now, that's a real kicker there. And of course, what this would mean is that maybe even weeks, if not months, depending on what the Europeans provide. And of course, remember, they've got a lot of struggles themselves, economy, and of course, military requirements for NATO and things like that. That's already a burden on them. And we saw, obviously, a big commitment there, 2.8 billion, I think it was, and 100-year contract support there from Prime Minister UK, Starmer there the other day for Ukraine. So this is all being halted there, and that would mean that that they're going to be under pressure because that military assets all going to run down, right, and all the money is going to stop flowing. So how much are the Europeans really going to deliver on that? Pressure on them, right? Pressure on them. So that is kind of the numbers that we're talking about, and it's we need to get Zelenskyy to peace. Hey, look, I think he's a narcissist myself. I'm very skeptical of him. If you ever met narcissists, they're pretty dangerous people, and he's got all the traits of a narcissist. So got to be careful with that. So hopefully, forever war. I want it to end. I've had enough of it. And people that support it, just supporting thousands of men going to die pointlessly every week. And if you haven't seen that, go check out those videos because they're horrific. They are literally horrific. And it's easy to say, oh, keep the war going, but it's a bloodbath. It's a bloodbath, and it's pointless because they can't beat Russia. And let's be frank, Russia is the biggest nuclear power on the planet. They got specialty weapons as well. It just can't work, and they got 3 times the size of the army. And they're actually the manufacturing at the moment. They got a full war economy. They are out manufacturing everybody in missiles and howitzer shells and everything else. I mean, they're just absolutely crazy. So it's only delusion that would think that they're going to beat that. And as I said, Ukrainians actually running through all its men. It's now the average age of the Ukraine army is about 43 or something. Don't believe the hype out there, because it's all fake. They make little victories. They might get a couple of kilometers of farmland, but they really haven't taken any major urban area. And so and meanwhile, we've got Russia sitting on there, it's slowly taking more urban air all the time. So it's going to be pretty crazy there as well. All right, so that's some of the video there. Let's quickly watch this next one as well from Sky News and kick into some of that.
US President Donald Trump has paused military aid to Ukraine. Donald Trump previously refused to confirm if he would temporarily stop aid to the country. A White House official says Mr. Trump is focused on achieving a peace deal and wants Volodymyr Zelenskyy to be committed to that goal. The president has launched a fresh attack on Mr. Zelenskyy after the Ukrainian leader suggested an end to the war with Russia is very, very far away.
Well, I just think he should be more appreciative because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us because, as you know, that's right there. That's the border. This country really was like the fence on the border. It was very important to Europe, and I'm not knocking Europe. I'm saying that they were a lot smarter than Joe Biden because Joe Biden didn't have a clue. He just gave money hand over fist.
Mr. Trump also didn't deny claims made by the Kremlin, which said the US president's foreign policy largely aligns with Russia's.
So that's actually a really important point because it's not just the Ukraine-Russian war, it's also the bigger picture. And this is the thing, Trump's just not worried about Ukraine, which is important, but he's worried about the whole positioning of the world and repositioning the United States in that framework. So it's pretty important there, and we know that Putin really does want to come back because it's going to be a lot better off. Their war economy, normally with the war economy, you can run like 3 or 4 years, and then it starts overheating. You start getting inflation, a lot of other problems, and that's exactly what's happening in Russia right now. So you can check out the Russian Central Bank to get a bit of insight on that too.
Live to Washington, our correspondent Annalise Nielsen standing by. Annalise, how significant will this be to Ukraine's war effort?
Well, look, in one sense, we knew this was coming. Donald Trump hadn't approved any additional Ukraine aid since he came into office. There was no signal he was going to do this. The significance of this happening at this moment from a domestic perspective is the fact he's going to address a joint session of Congress tomorrow. This is something the Democrats could wedge Donald Trump on, given there is still widespread support for Ukraine among Democrat voters. They could be holding up or threatening to hold up at least budget resolutions for the Republicans. And so that is a key pressure point. This is Donald Trump making it clear before he has this joint address to Congress. It's essentially a State of the Union, but this is what happens when it's the first address from a president. He's only been in a month, so he doesn't get to give the report card for the last guy. He just gets to say what he wants to do. What he is going to do is make it clear that this conversation is over. And there has been a lot of support among Republicans for how he's handled this. The fact that this has played out in the way it has with this confrontation in the Oval Office, for many Republicans, they've been feeling like the last few years they haven't been taken seriously on a global stage, that Joe Biden's obvious cognitive decline has weakened America, and this is America looking strong again. I know many have felt like it looked like a complete ambush and bullying an ally, and there's certainly voices that match that perspective here as well. But from a political perspective, what Donald Trump here is doing is essentially just closing that door, and he's also not letting this ratchet up from Zelensky's perspective. For Republicans as well, they've also been watching what happened with Zelenskyy after he left. He refused to apologize, and then he went to the warm embrace of European leaders who've all pledged to do more to make up for the big bad guy, Donald Trump. For Republicans, that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted Europe to step up, they wanted Europe to spend more money, and they wanted Europe to take the lead, take responsibility. So for them, this has been nothing but win-win-win. So Donald Trump is just doubling down on that for his base, for his administration. And they've been clear when they make this statement, which they've put out through the White House press office, saying the president's been clear that he's focused on peace. We need our partners to be committed to that goal as well. We are pausing and reviewing our aid to ensure that it is contributing to a solution. So that's the thing to keep in mind when we're talking about aid here. There's always a presidential budget. Donald Trump was obviously never going to dip into his own budget for Ukraine. This is him telling Congress, I'm not going to let you go too easy if you want to start trying to spend congressional expenditure on Ukraine.
So we're going to be looking forward to Trump's speech at the congressional hearing there in Congress. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll get a lot more insights there as well. But this is a really strong move. It's great to see this move from Trump. Honestly, it's an unwinnable war. Maybe if the war was winnable, you might argue, but it's unwinnable, and enough is enough. And there's certainly a lot of questions over the Ukrainian administration as well. And of course, Europeans there blindly following. Now, the Europeans, of course, full of their own tyranny, right? So it's we've got a lot of Marxists and globalists running our West, destroying the West, and we've got our own problems. So fingers crossed, this one works itself through to peace. We've got a couple comments here. StakeX says, "I'm not sure we should cut a deal," and I think we talked about that one, didn't we? I'll come back to that one. So we've got another one here. People forget since the beginning of the war, Russia could and end the Ukraine anytime. In fact, they could have ended it in the first week, right? So that was the case for the Ukrainian war right back in 2022 there in February. War could have been ended, but Biden and that weren't interested, right? So that was a big problem. Within the first week. However, Putin knew he could bleed the US and Europeans hundreds of billions before he did it. Since the beginning of the war, Russia knew they could have overwhelmed Ukraine. They could have done it in the first week, yeah. And this is the thing, is that Putin was trying to get a deal done. That's why he invaded. He had a big armored column only a couple of miles away from the capital of Ukraine, Kiev, and he was trying to get a deal done because they weren't listening to Putin all before that, right? So it's pretty crazy stuff. Putin is happy bleeding the US dry. Proxy war, the US and Ukraine can't win. That's right. And that's the other thing. And of course, Trump's looking for to make the golden era for America, and wasting money on unwinnable wars. Certainly not part of that setup. And of course, Trump has a genuine caring for people. He doesn't want them to be killed wherever they are in the world. So it's great to have a president that thinks about things like that. Unlike the European leaders, which are just terrible people. So we'll move on from that. All right, let's listen to a little bit more of this little commentary here.
Annalise, give us a sense of how that showdown has been received in the United States. We know there's been strong criticism from Democrats and from critics of Donald Trump. What's the broader view like? Is there any sense of what America thinks of the way Donald Trump and J.D. Vance had that clash with Zelenskyy?
Oh, I wouldn't suggest at all that it's just been a rapturous applause across America for this, but there certainly is a strong element in the Republican base that is very supportive of this. They don't want America involved in foreign conflicts. They think it's a waste of money. They think it's so far removed from every day, and they think the focus should be here on the economy. And that's something else that Donald Trump hasn't moved the money on just yet. He's talking about implementing these tariffs. We've seen a dive in the stock market. We know he takes that seriously. And realistically, long term, for these tariffs to have the effect he wants, he needs to get big budget cuts and big tax cuts through Congress. And that's not a guarantee. So that all plays into what his strategy is here as well. And I do want to emphasize here that my interpretation from watching what they're doing is that there is absolutely a strategy to this. I've heard a lot of commentary just that Trump has this personal grudge and he blew up and it was just this out of control ambush. But this is a very different Trump administration to the first time around. There's a plan. I think they executed that plan in the Oval Office the way that they wanted to. And I think just the other thing to keep in perspective with all this is Americans hate spending money on foreign aid, and they have always had this disproportionate belief of how much money they spend on foreign aid. There's surveys all the time where people will think it's 30% of the federal budget, and realistically it's a fraction of the money that's spent federally, and mainly what they're doing right now.
Well, here I would probably disagree with her a little bit, somewhat, because we see it depends what you define as aid, right? Well, we know US aid is full of corruption and fraud, and they possibly could find $1 trillion out of a $7.8 trillion budget that they could actually get rid of. So I don't quite agree with her. I think she's underplaying that, but maybe this depends on the definitions here.
Spending money on Social Security and servicing their own debt. So these are the factors that play into the kind of broader conversation around this. But I know from a global perspective, and I've seen a lot of the reporting commentary in Australia, that people are quite horrified that this is a realignment of how the US treats its allies and how the world order is changing. And be that all true, there is a certain element here that it's playing very well domestically.
And that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing.
Live from Washington, thank you on that breaking news.
So very important that, and we want the world order to be reorganized, because we've had liberal and now progressive leaders over the last 20, 30 years absolutely, utterly start to decimate, particularly the last 10 years. The West and all of our countries are under massive threat from these absolutely moronic, narcissistic, idiotic leaders. I mean, there's nothing else you can say about them. There's no good words. And of course, we're talking about European leaders, talking about Canada, talking about New Zealand, Australia. We have got horrific leaders. I mean, these guys, I don't know where they come from, but they're really dumb-dumbs. They're dummy. Not only they're dummy, but some of them are evil, outright evil. And it's very sinister. So we're not in actually physical wars, but we're in a kind of a sinister war inside of our societies where they are destroying them. So, and for no good reason. They're not making a better world; they're making a worse world. So it's a pretty unfortunate. I feel very sorry for new generations coming up having to endure this nonsense. Pretty crazy stuff. So that is kind of where we are at the moment. So Trump, they're kind of about the aid. Hopefully that war will end up being pressured to end. America does have all the cards, as Trump said. And of course, the only card that I guess Zelenskyy has is that he needs to join the party. And look, he may or may not end up being the leader for a while. There's always chances that something might happen within Ukraine itself or something like that. So we'll see what happens in that space. He certainly isn't the right person for the right time and needs to be replaced so that you get someone to go to peace. Imagine that, saving all those people's lives. And I hope for Ukrainian people that they do not join the European Union, because that is another war they're going to lose because they will be required to take immigration, and that immigration will be from the Middle East and Africa, and they'll have the same problems as we see in France, as we see in Spain, as we see in Germany, as we see in Sweden. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. They will be overrun without a bullet fired. There won't be one shot fired, and no one will care. No one will care. And so they care about this one, but they won't care about that one. So it's very important that the war's ended as well. All right, so I hope you guys have enjoyed that update there. Pretty good moves there from Trump. I'm pretty happy about that. Let's see where this heads. We know that Trump's going to be speaking in Congress soon. I think it's tomorrow, so that'll be fun to see that as well. Hopefully we just continue on the strength there. I think J.D. Vance, the vice president, is doing an incredible job as supporting the president. I think it's amazing. We know the approval ratings of Trump and J.D. Vance are the highest approval ratings for politicians in the United States, and that means that everything is going very, very well indeed. We see that the border's been cut back to very, very low numbers. I think it's 8,000 in a week in the last week. This is a phenomenal stuff, which they've ended up arresting and things like that. So things are really starting to head the right direction. Now, obviously, the tariffs are going to cause some upheaval as Trump renegotiates a lot of things, but I'm sure some of those will be set right, and the ones that need to remain, perhaps like China, will remain. So we'll see where that all ends up as well. We could get some good stuff around tax policy on Friday for crypto. That builds on our Bitcoin reserve yesterday. And of course, the other bullish things, of course, is when the money starts flying, right? Starts flying into crypto. So I think the outlook's looking pretty good for that too, just as an aside. So kind of neat. All right, let's get into the final comments before we wrap up. Stakey says, allow me to make a prediction. Evidence will come out that Zelenskyy has been involved in black market weapon sales in American weapons, 20 cents on the dollar to our enemies. So, hey, wouldn't be surprised at all. We also know that a lot of weapons go through Mexico. That's true to Gaza as well, because we've seen Hamas holding these U.S. military armaments, which generally go via Mexico. We also know that a lot of the illegal metals and trade, as well as drugs, go through Mexico as well. Mexico's just got so many loopholes, and you shut down Mexico and then they start going through Canada, right? There is some big issues there. Yeah, good prediction. Yeah, that's probably, we'll look forward to that. Yes, mate, it certainly looks like the left and the right are both left. Yeah, that's true. We've got Zelenskyy says, is a dictator and a puppet. He needs to be removed as soon as possible, says Cryptomatic. Yeah, he's a big problem, you know. So obviously we're in favor of the Ukrainian people. I have many Ukrainian friends. They are great people. But there are always some bad apples, and the bad apples tend to get control, right? That's the problem. The bad apples there. We've got plenty of bad apples here. Different type of bad apples, but we got that too. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Hit the bell. Share the channel around. Leave your comments as well. And if you haven't joined our Discord, the links are in the video description. Get on to that today, and I'll catch you on the next show. Take care, everybody, and bye for now.